Lamb boy. And I guess I've been dreaming. 'Cause now that I'm woke, everything that I see ain't what it seems, man. I guess I've been dreaming. 'Cause now that I'm here, what I feel motivates me with reason. I guess I've been dreaming. 'Cause now that I'm woke, everything that I see ain't what it seems, man. I guess I've been dreaming. 'Cause now that I'm here, what I feel motivates me with reason. I guess I've been dreaming.
What it is, what it do? Welcome back to the channel, man. How y'all living out there, man? How the world treating y'all, man? So, yo, we probably got the internet situation situated. You know what I mean? We may be good, y'all. We may be good. But I hope everybody doing good, because I'm doing great now, even better, and getting even better, because we about to really run it up now. You know what I'm talking about? We got some nature videos. You know what I'm talking about? We got eight times that Mother Nature got mad, and you already know that we've been seeing Mother go in on a lot of places, especially across them waters. You know what I'm talking about? So we got 8 times, and we gonna get this one in real quick, like for the afternoon segment. You know what I mean? And without further ado, let's get to what it is that we do. I hope you got you, because I do.
Hi everyone. No matter how advanced our technologies are, we still can't fight nature, especially when it makes a sudden, powerful strike, making it clear who's the real master of this planet. Natural disasters take many lives, and it's always a tragedy. In our video for today, we'll show you the most terrible disasters in the new history of mankind. Apparently, the planet is trying to get rid of people by simply shaking them off. Do you not believe us? Well, see for yourself. Let's get it on.
You already said the planet trying to. You know what I'm talking about? I've been saying it for the longest now. Now other people are starting to say it with me, and I appreciate it. Now I'm not the only one.
Tangshan earthquake. The earthquake that happened in the Chinese city of Tangshan on July the 28th, 1976 is considered one of the biggest disasters in the 20th century. At 3:42 AM local time, the city was destroyed by a strong earthquake. Its hypercenter lied at a depth of 22 kilometers. It hit so hard that even Beijing, which is located 140 kilometers to the west, was affected. After that, there were several repetitive aftershocks with a magnitude of up to 7.1 points, and this resulted in even greater casualties. This happened because several hours passed between the first and second shock, and people had already started to eliminate the consequences of the disaster. The first shock destroyed more than 90% of all the city buildings, and the workers were just clearing up the rubble when the second shock arrived. It killed the workers and the people who were still alive under the debris. A huge number of casualties were caused by the fact that the main shock happened at night, when almost all the people were sleeping. In addition, the city was overpopulated, and houses weren't strong enough to withstand the earthquake. According to the official data of the authorities, 242,419 people were killed. However, this figure might be wrong. Some say that up to 655,000 people died that day.
Strategic, precise, caught y'all while y'all was sleeping, shook you up. Then the workers came to help, shook them up, and anybody else they got in the way, they got shook up. Roughly 655,000 people transcended that day.
European heat waves. Scorching hot summers are unusual for Europe, but in recent years the climate has been changing, and this leads to disastrous consequences. In 2003, the summer was unusually hot. The temperature exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. This led to a medical crisis in several countries and caused droughts that ruined the crop. In some countries, agricultural losses accounted for 60% of the entire crop volume, but France suffered the most. According to some experts, the death toll exceeded 14,000 people. Most of them were elderly who simply couldn't handle such a temperature. There weren't enough doctors to help everyone either. The forests throughout.
Did he just say? Did he say 2003? He said 2003, right? Let's run it back.
European heat waves. Scorching hot summers are unusual for Europe, but in recent years the climate has been changing, and this leads to disastrous consequences. In 2003, the summer was unusually hot. The temperature exceeded 40 degrees Celsius. This led to a medical crisis in several countries and caused droughts that ruined the crop. In some countries, agricultural losses accounted for 60% of the entire crop volume, but France suffered the most. According to some experts, the death toll exceeded 14,000 people. Most of them were elderly who simply couldn't handle such a temperature. There weren't enough doctors to help everyone either. The forests throughout Europe were so dried up that a single spark or a cigarette butt was enough to burn thousands of hectares of wood down. After devastating fires in France, the fires spread to the forests of Spain and Portugal. It's not an exaggeration to call it a real summer apocalypse. Tsunami.
So that was 20 years ago. Imagine what they're going through now. We've already heard the reports, right? You know what I mean? I've been to the UK. I know it's practically melancholy every day. The weather, it's cold. You know, definitely need like a heavy sweater or a jacket or something every day. You know what I mean? Every day. At least the part that I was in, where I was, it was cold every day. So I can only imagine in 03, and then we talking these solar flares are hitting the earth now. Boy, stop. Let's get it.
In the Indian Ocean. Everyone has heard of this tragedy. On December the 26th, 2004, the most powerful earthquake for the last 50 years occurred in the Indian Ocean, west of Sumatra Island. Shocks with a magnitude of 9 points set in motion huge areas of the Earth's crust, creating a huge fault 1,200 meters long. The plates moved and generated the wave, which began to move along the Indian Ocean in all directions at a speed of about 1,000 kilometers per hour. However, there were no official tsunami warnings. Within a few hours, the tsunami reached the coast of 13 countries, from West Africa to Thailand. In many places, the waves traveled 2 kilometers inland, and in some areas even 4 kilometers. People didn't even know about the danger they might face, and paid for their ignorance. According to various estimates, from 220.
Wait. He just said that people they didn't get a warning. So how could it? I'm gonna pay for somebody not telling me, right? If y'all supposed to be over such things, and y'all supposed to be the word. You didn't put out the memo? And these people suffer for it. But he said okay.
25 to 300,000 people died that day. The exact death toll is still unknown, as many people were simply washed away into the ocean. Daulatpur tornado. On April the 26th, 1989, Bangladesh was hit by the most destructive and deadly tornado in the history of this country. For 6 months, this area was affected by drought, which is believed to be the reason for the tornado. A giant funnel touched down near Manikganj, a densely populated city of Bangladesh. And when we say giant, we mean it. According to some reports, the width of the tornado was 1.5 kilometers, and the wind speed reached 180 to 350 kilometers per hour. The tornado traveled 80 kilometers, destroying everything in its path. About 1,300 people were killed and 12,000 were injured. The damage was huge because countless trees were uprooted, and each house within 6 square kilometers of the tornado path was completely destroyed. About 80,000 people were left homeless as well. By the way, some researchers claim that this tornado was the deadliest in the entire written history of mankind. Snowstorm in Iran. When it comes to a devastating snowstorm, you imagine some kind of cold region like Alaska. Where else could such a catastrophe happen? But this snowstorm hit Iran. Snow sometimes falls in this country, especially in the mountain areas, but these precipitations are not that intense, but there are always exceptions to any rule. On February the 3rd, 1972, it was snowing in Iran, which didn't surprise anyone. It was winter after all. But soon, the falling snow turned into a strong snowstorm. People living in the villages couldn't fight the weather and just hid in their homes, hoping to wait until the storm was over. In some areas, the thickness of the snow layer reached 8 meters. The snow covered residential buildings with people inside. As a result, some people died from the collapse of roofs that couldn't withstand the weight of the snow, and some just froze to death when the air
I was just about to say that. When he said that people just decided to sit in and wait it out, I'm like, some of them folk probably never even came out. They never made it back out of that giant. You know what I'm talking about? For real. Like, for real. Look how hot. Come on, man. Bruh. That's what? About 12? I mean, 8, 9 feet?
Temperature began to plummet. 2 villages lost all their people. As a result, more than 4,000 people became victims of that terrible snowstorm. But this was not the end of it, because soon the snow began to melt, which means flooding. However, that was a different story.
The double whammy.
The eruption of Mount Pelée. Mount Pelée is a volcano in the northern part of the island of Martinique. It's been dormant since its last eruption in 1932, but we're talking about another disaster which brought Mount Pelée its notorious reputation. The volcano started to show activity in April 1902, and an eruption occurred a month later, on May the 8th at 7:52 in the morning. Mount Pelée constantly showed signs of activity before the eruption. For example, it emitted clouds of ash and smoke and shook. People living in Saint-Pierre were preparing for the evacuation, but the newspapers claimed that there was nothing to fear. The governor and his wife stayed in the city. Residents of the surrounding villages went to Saint-Pierre to seek shelter, but this did not save them. On the morning of May the 8th, a huge black cloud consisting of lava, vapors and gases emerged from a crack at the foot of the volcano. It climbed up and then rolled downwards along the mountain to the city with a speed of more than 670 kilometers per hour. A glowing hot cloud with a temperature of 1075 degrees Celsius sped down towards Saint-Pierre, burning fuel and destroying everything in its path. Some eyewitnesses who miraculously survived this disaster said that the mountain seemed to have blown up to bits and the city disappeared in a matter of seconds. On that day, 28,000 people died in just a few minutes, which made the Mount Pelée eruption the worst disaster in the 20th century. Flood in China. From 1928 to 1930, China suffered from severe drought. At the end of 1930, the country also witnessed severe snowstorms, and in the spring, endless heavy rains and thaws. You've probably guessed what this led to. The Yangtze and the Huai rivers experienced periods of high waters, and when we say high waters, we mean the levels increased by 70 centimeters in just 1 month. Showers continued in the summer, peaking in July to August 1931. The summer was was also characterized by extreme cyclonic activity. This resulted in floods, which soon reached the city of Nanjing, which at the time was the capital of China. On August the 19th, the water level was 16 meters above the average. Approximately 180,000 square kilometers of area were flooded, and 25 million people were affected. However, modern researchers believe that the true figure could reach 53 million. At least 150,000 people drowned in the first few months of the flood, and hundreds of thousands died of starvation and diseases the following year. Huascaran mudslide. Yungay is a very small town in Peru. Today, only 20,000 people live here, but still, this town is the capital of the province with the same name. In the 1970s, it was a very unremarkable town. In the second half of the 20th century, tourists started visiting this place because it was located close to Huascaran, the fourth highest mountain in South America. Climbers from all over the world began to flock to Yungay to conquer the ice peak, and where there's a mountain, there's always a risk of an avalanche or a mudslide. In 1962, an ice avalanche happened, but back then, Yungay was lucky. It passed by without damaging the capital. Right after the disaster, 2 American scientists visited Huascaran. They carefully examined the mountain and found another huge piece of rock and ice. If that collapsed, it could have led to the complete destruction of Yungay. Researchers asked the newspaper to warn the townspeople as soon as possible. However, the Peruvian authorities refused to spread the information about a possible disaster in order to avoid panic. On May 31st, 1970, the area near Huascaran was shuddered by a powerful earthquake. Its epicenter was far away, but the shock was strong enough to break off a massive piece of ice and rock about 1.5 kilometers long. The avalanche reached a speed of 350 kilometers per hour, changing the direction of movement several times. Huge boulders and blocks of ice were shot out of the avalanche, destroying everything in its path. 3 minutes later, Yungay, with almost all of its inhabitants, was buried under a 10-meter layer of ice, stones, and mud. More than 20,000 people died that day.
Hey, stop being lazy, it's time to use that brain of yours. Welcome to Brain Time.
Listen, man, that concludes the video. I mean, I would say I hope you enjoyed it, but ain't really much to enjoy about that. That's a lot of people transcending and literally wiped off the planet. Literally. And all of them, I ain't never heard of none of them. I'm like, I'm listen here. Y'all better straighten up out there. You know what I'm saying? I know what the business is, but you know, damn, man, listen, man. You know what I'm saying?